No, I think married people behave your wife wakes you up and says, babe, would you love me if I was a wooden table on a hill?
And my answer is, you have a number for therapy.
The big question of unconditional love.
I think part of that is the problem with how the church has communicated this whole message of God loving us. It's almost as if it's dependent on us doing things. So yes, God loves you, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things.
Welcome back to the ReImagined podcast. Today we are having a conversation on reimagining love. My name is Agi Olo and my co-hosts are
Vic Munala
and Nashwal Guru.
Yes, karibuni sana. So to start us off, today's conversation is a quote by Barbara Brown Taylor that says this on love. The hardest spiritual work in the world is to love the neighbor as the self, to encounter another human being not as someone you can use, change, fix, help, save, enroll, convince, or control, but simply as someone who can spring you from the prison of yourself if you will allow it.
The hardest thing is comprehending that.
Okay, it says the hardest spiritual work in the world is to love the neighbor as the self. Yeah.
Okay, then.
Okay. To encounter another human being not as someone you can use or change or fix or help or save, enroll, convince or control, but simply as someone who can spring you from the prison of yourself if you will allow it.
I think
It's a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
How do you love
that person.
the other? Mm-hmm.
No, on one level, it's like you agree with it. I'm like, I see that, to love the other person for who they are. As someone with children, I don't think that children should be
children, right?
I don't think they should be included in like the neighbor category.
And then your neighbor.
Yeah, they're just like children, so that when you don't have the word, it's like excuse or whatever it is. But I actually do. I mean, like the part for the hardest work, I think is that like it's just so easy. It just comes so natural to pigeonhole the neighbor for whatever our own purposes and goals they may be, even when they are the highest aspirations you can imagine. You know what I mean? Even like the thing, I'm going to reach out to you so I can love you. You know what I mean? It's this thing for I think to center the other, not yourself. I think that's where the hard work is. And like the part for someone who can help spring us out of our own prisons. I'm like, yeah, like there's so much for saying truth. And I don't want to believe that I go around as identifying as someone who lives in a prison. And yet, and still, as soon as I encounter someone, like literally, it's like all of a sudden, all sort of wars crop up, But then I assume that I'm boxing the other person. Me, I'm free. They're the ones that are in prison. You know what I mean? I box them into, oh God, there's that my neighbor. I'll have to do A, B, C, D.
So this quote is saying that the prison, you're the one actually in prison.
Yeah, we're making you imprisoning the other. Like for war.
Yeah. The hardest, we've established things are hard.
Everything.
It's like, how hard?
Yeah. But I think part of it starts from the definition of the neighbor, and it's that question we all used to fail in CRE. It's like, who is my neighbor. And there was a whole conversation with Jesus and the people about who my neighbor really is. And most of us, we like to define the neighbor as this person who is easy to love, this person who you agree with on all things, this person who maybe looks like a person you would want to hang out with. So those ones, I think are easy to have. But once you start moving beyond those boundaries of, I agree with everything they say, I agree with the opinions, it starts becoming harder and harder for love in those senses. And then the other part is, so first it's defining the neighbor, and then the different seasons and what kind of love that the neighbor needs. Because it could be in a season where love in that season means a hug. It could be in a season like in 2020 where love means just
stay away from me.
Yes, so it's also defining what are these seasons of the neighbor that I'm thinking about, and what is it that they, not me, that they need most from me, and then navigating that from that level. I think that's what Barbara is trying to say, and all this without without your ego being at the center of it all.
That's agreement. Yeah, as they were talking, the thing that also came to my mind, just because of just how hard that work is, was figuring out, out of all these nice contexts of who is my neighbor, whatever. I wonder then if we go around trying to create, to turn our imaginary neighbors into our real life neighbors, you know what I mean? Which then creates this thing not as neighbors, but just people who are just proximate to one another, you know what I mean? Because then I can agree with you for as long as we never go past a certain depth, you know what I mean? I can like you, whatever the thing is, which I guess when I think of neighbors, I sort of try to think of my children. Because then I'm like, they're in my house. And then I did for whatever years old, you know what I mean? So then I don't have as much as I try to paint them in one box, whatever, or whether it's my wife, it's their humanity keeps pressing onto my ego, like what you're saying. So it's their season will affect how I love, or at least will demand that I change how I love them. Well, you know what I mean? It's their humanity keeps pressing against mine. So I think because we subconsciously know how hard that is, we just settle for, it's not shallow love, because it's not so much love, we just settle for liking one another. It's we are the people who genuinely like one another, but we don't know anything much beyond. And every time we try to push that relationship just a little bit forward, all of a sudden, all of the ways that we increase on one another,
the controlling, the fixing,
So then, then I guess in line with what Rick was saying, is I'm just trying to imagine that world. It's that makes for a really, really shallow, toxic world. You know what I mean? Where no one ever gets to experience the gift of truly being loved from a place of being known, but also a place where we're all just smiling at one another. Anyway, that's the thing that was coming to my mind. I give you just stuck as it's hard.
It's hard. No, I mean, I think so. The assumption of this quote is that there's a way that I love myself. That then needs to be extended to the neighbor. But when I think about even how we are talking about self-destruction, it's very common right now. How we even treat ourselves. It's I love the other as myself, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if all our relationships with ourselves are can be the benchmark for how to love another.
Maybe actually we do love our neighbors, we love ourselves.
Because we also don't know how to love ourselves. So
maybe we actually do obey one of Jesus.
We are loving others as we love ourselves. Yeah, because I'm because then for me I feel this quote, the starting point for it is my love for self, and what is the relationship here? Is it healthy? Is it nurturing? Is it deep enough that then it allows me to then transfer or whatever, extrapolate that to the next person. And I just don't know if I'm there yet, but
And I guess that's the part, I think how you love yourself now defines the rest part of the quote, where love can be controlling, because you see yourself in a particular way and you want this other person that you're supposed to extend love to, you want to control them to be in a certain kind of way. You want to change them to be in a certain kind of way, and maybe your love at that point in your life is coming from an unhealthy point of view, and then you get frustrated because these people are not
they're not
responding to
taking your love.
Yes.
And you're giving your best.
You give me the best. Like, why can't they just respond to what I'm giving?
Yes.
No, anyway, what Aggie has said, this is like she hints at the mutuality of that. You know what I mean? Like there's a sense in which I'm like, I'm not going to love my neighbor until I've loved myself well. Then go out and love them. But there's a sense in which, like both of us, it's like in this loving one another, that we also find ourselves, that there's a sense in which by loving my neighbor well, it also ends up also being a reflection of me loving myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's almost like it's this one loop kind of a thing. I mean, sure, if you want to extend that to even bring God into that picture, that those three loves are always intermingling and always interdependently connected, which is also like really hard, because also in our fragmenting, in our world where we are very good at fragmenting, like I know I'm going through a season where I'm still learning how to love myself. And that's absolutely important. To the degree that doesn't also mean that I'm going to shut out all of you until I now come back and I'm like, you know what? I have experienced loving myself. Now bring the word I love you. Where are these neighbors? I love them. But it's almost like Jesus, that is the way he frames that from the word God. Like, you don't have to leave. You don't have to go somewhere else to then come and love. It's like here, and maybe even what you hinted, maybe there's no an ideal in it. Maybe you just start loving your neighbor where you are, doing the best to center them as compared to your ego. And then slowly you also find yourself being out of this imprisoning space of ego, where you are so self-aware of your mistakes and all sorts of things, Just wake up. The mutuality of it is very fascinating.
I think, I like that I think it's Esther Perel who says, like, there's no healing that happens outside of the community. Like, it's almost like when you want to learn how to love yourself, you need to go and learn outside, then you will come back and reintegrate. Whilst the process is much more intermingled than we would like. I actually read, like, I don't know, something that was saying, when we are told to love ourselves first, we confuse that with we love ourselves best or we love ourselves most. But it's not that I love myself the best or I love myself the most. It's just that I love myself first. Those are two different things. Because now when I'm thinking about how to best love myself, that's a whole other thing. That's a mountain. When I think about how to love myself the most, that's also like, how do I even measure? What is that? But first is like, oh, okay. It's a place, it's something you can work with. It's more, So it's all these conflations of how loving yourself, what that can look like, and then how you can then love your neighbor.
As Nash is speaking about fragmentation, I'm thinking just how the retreating, that's the easiest part to do, and that's what comes naturally to most of us. You would want to retreat, and it's almost that excuse for getting out of life. But then life hasn't afforded us easiness in the most sense. So for the most part, we have to do the hard work especially in those seasons where you are at your unloving self. Probably those are the seasons you need to push through to reach out. Maybe you will find the things there.
And which brings us to like the question, the big question of unconditional love.
or that quote was leading there.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. What are you guys' thoughts about unconditional love? Does it exist? Is it for the birds? They say.
The birds of the air.
The birds of the air.
The birds of the air love each other unconditionally.
No, God loves them unconditionally because He
Oh.
provides for them, and then they're just always happy and chirping every morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess.
No, I think even actually it's flowing from what we were talking about. I'm just now thinking about like I love this word, like the ordinariness, like the mundaneness of love. Because I mean, also we have to acknowledge that when we talk of love, there's also a hyper romanticization. You know what it's like the movies or whatever the world is. Like also is what we label love. You know what I mean? Like it has to be extra. You know,
For it to be like,
yeah, being a kind human being can't just be equated to a loving human being. You know what I mean? So I'm just reflecting on the idea of maybe this only works when it's like the ordinariness, you know, the ordinariness, the mundaneness of who we are, so that then if but like the Caesar's idea, if I'm tired, you know, and I'm loving my neighbor, it still means like I have this much love to give. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean I'm mean or whatever it is, but I love to the degree of where I am, you know. So that then the idea then of unconditional love for me, I think I'm seeing it in that light, like through that idea that the idea that I'm loving in like the ordinariness of it, you know, and maybe conditionality could also be the fixation that I have of the ideal way to love in my head. You know what I mean? You keep shooting for the star that then becomes exhausting, but it's being invited. Even the idea of love your neighbor as you love yourself, like most often, I mean, sure enough, once in a while we treat ourselves, you know. But if you're loving yourself genuinely and in healthy ways, it's a very local particular thing, you know. It's like the boundaries you have. It's not that complicated. Whereas I think when you're talking about like even unconditional love, it means that, you know, there are all these sorts of conditions that we put of ourselves for the loving of our neighbor, you know. So I'm thinking maybe it exists to the degree that we reimagine and redefine even what conditions we have placed there. And at the same time also to talk about that and say, when we talk of unconditional love, then it's used a lot both with people who just want to be superhumans, you know, just want to wow the world. Also, but I guess we get hesitant to that because it's used a lot as an excuse. You know what I mean? Then it becomes an excuse for you're not doing the hard spiritual work of loving well, you know. So then it just becomes this thing that either is unattainable or it's just an excuse for me to settle down for very low standards. But in a very real sense, I think it's possible. Broken as we are, you know.
Yeah, I think my first thought goes to that whole thing of would you love me if I was a worm?
No,
If I was a cockroach.
If I was, would you love me
For
if
the
I was
table.
a chair at 3 a.m.?
Who is asking?
I
No,
hear married people
I think married people, 3 a.m. your wife wakes you up and says, babe, would you love me if I was a wooden table on a hill?
And my answer is, you have a number for a therapy. You know.
I don't know if it's true, but that's what we hear happens on that side of life.
That side. But yeah, it also reminds me of this person talking about they were having a conversation with the wife, and the wife asked, "Why do you love me?" And then, like, without thinking, this guy goes, "For no reason at all." But you see, that's not a good answer to give your wife. At that point,
Just.
she expects you to list all the things, the smile, the fair, or whatever it is that what the reasons you married her in the first place, because maybe she needs a reassurance or whatever it is. But that can also be looked at as conditions. These are sort of quote unquote the conditions of why I love you, why I married you. And I think part of that is the problem with how the church has communicated this whole message of God loving us. It's almost as if it's dependent on us doing things. So yes, God loves you, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things for you to clean up just enough and to make sure you are clean all through for you to be loved or that sort of thing. So we say there is unconditional love, but then there is a disconnect because how we act, how we communicate, it communicates these things of conditions. And it's a match. It's a match we need to wrestle of. So where do we fall in that sense? How else can we frame that conversation for unconditionality? What does it mean to be loved by God unconditionally? What does it mean to love your kids unconditionally and vice versa? Because love, as you said, it's a lot of excuses that we use in a lot of places. It's the father who will stay in the office late to work hard because he loves his family. And we can't doubt that because he has seen his role as providing for the family. But maybe the kids want him at home. So they are both sending different messages about love. And we are here, the kids saying, our father doesn't love us. But at that point, the father loves them. And that's also the disconnect that we have with God. So we have these things like we feel like we are not yet there, but God is there also, like just come. So there's conditions we need to meet, there's no conditions we need to meet, there's a framing conversation that needs to be had there. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. So there's no, as of now, I don't have an answer of whether there's conditional or unconditional love.
I think the thing that I heard about love that I've been pondering, actually, I think it's Kate Bowler who said it, that the only prosperity gospel I subscribe to is love. That love is the only thing that carries with it a generative energy. That love in its purest form produces. It's generous. It's generative. It's giving. Anyway, I don't know. I'm still figuring out what does that even mean. I don't know whether unconditional love exists for sure.
You guys do know that this is a podcast. We are supposed to give answers.
Oh,
we can't all be here saying I don't know.
I mean, we are here. We are figuring it out together.
But and before we comment to the next thing, I just wanted to just say something, which is part of what you have touched. I think first, like even as Vic is explaining, I think like also there's an equating of unconditional love with some form of like a cheap love. You know what I mean? But like even God loving us unconditionally still costs God immensely on one level, you know. So then it's because we can't figure it in our head, then it's almost like, oh my God, why am I loving you unconditionally? But it's like because it's equated to like it's a cheapness, like then you take advantage of that or whatever it is, you know. And I think then connected to that, like it definitely cost the lover like way too much kind of a thing. And then connected to that is what Agi is saying. It's not like if you're loved unconditionally, then you go around looking for loopholes to abuse that love. You know what I mean? That this unconditional love generates in you a certain kind of transformation. You see what I mean? So even, and I guess that's why that question is really hard, because then you can't answer that outside of that love. It's not like an intellectual thing, you know, because however you create it, you just don't know how to respond to it. But when you have been loved unconditionally, and we all have, like, even just small examples, like if a teacher loved you unconditionally, like one time in primary school, you know what I mean?
In lower primary,
literally, in nursery school,
who
literally, who is always an English teacher, thank God. It's actually sad that it's not a CRE teacher, but be that as it may, the bigger point is like when you're loved unconditionally, like it stays with you, like it transforms you. We are here who being fueled through life, because some teacher in class 7 looked at us and said something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All these years later. So then, when we experience that love, it transforms us. But I feel like when we talk about it outside of that experience, it always looks like, but that doesn't mean that then I'll take advantage of that. You know. So anyway, the only other thing.
The other thing, there's a verse in the Bible that brings about the unconditionality of love, and it brings with it some tensions, and especially how Christians we act in terms of bringing people on board, whatever that means. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. Neither death nor. Let's concentrate on the death part.
Neither love nor death.
Yeah, neither. Yes, but there's this whole conversation about, and we touched a bit on it when we were having the conversation on faith. This burning Christian question of where will you go when you die? It almost feels like God's love stops at death.
For some people.
There has been movies made about this person in an accident, and then the first thing this responder dies is, do you want to know Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so...
You're dying in the next few seconds.
You're dying in the next few seconds. Please make it right with God. So that unconditionality and the tension of how we've understood what we need to do, it's almost like we are saying unconditional love from God ends at death.
But at many other things also. It's not just death.
Okay, we'll pull it back.
There's so many. I mean, people are excommunicated for a lot of things, Vic. Like not going to church and going to hike. But no, there's many other things, reasons for which the love of God does not reach the other person. It's not just at there. Let me move us on. So we're going to respond to, of course we are.
That was our attempt at responding.
Yeah, we're going to I guess try and continue responding to how this love, how we understand this love, whether it's like this triangle of love, like God, me, neighbor. Whether the neighbor be your children or your wife or just your neighbor. So I'm going to read the statements and we'll respond to them. So we'll do this segment and then So the first one is this understanding that love is or should be a reward for good behavior.
Isn't that what we learned? Ep4. It's like the thing. No, that's like in Ep4 because I feel like Ep4 encapsulated the cultural reality of
our lives,
from school to home to Sunday school.
Yeah.
It's always rewarded.
You got preferential treatment for being, especially the good child, the good student, and first of all, it's like not just preferential treatment, it's also that you become the SI unit and everyone is just being told, why can't you be like this other person? Which means in many senses you're falling short of what would make you worthy of my approval, of my whatever, if you're not being like this other person.
Yeah. And the challenge I have with that is it's always always a changing dimension of what's good behavior, as it were.
Yeah.
Like as a reward for good behavior. But also it fails to account. I mean, that's the thing I think when we center love like in our humanness capacity, as it were, it's like I wonder if love is a thing that pulls us even and helps transcend that idea that we are both saints and sinners kind of a thing. Because I feel like when love, even that, like love is a reward for good behavior, it's still so limiting in a sense. First, like if we are all being honest, good behavior is a very, very relative slippery slope. You know what I mean? Like no one, I can't remember the last time I was in a good behavior for like a week. You know what I mean? Not even going like very far. I'm just saying a week. But also, like then good behavior is defined by who? You know what I mean? So I'm just saying that I
People
feel like
demand
love
that.
transcends that, and actually also in a very real reality. I think with say like with my kids, when do I feel most drawn to them? I'm like when they are behaving well, it's good, like it maintains peace and harmony at home, whatever. But I feel like also when they are messing up, not like when they are like really driving me bad, but just whatever they're messing thing up because they are tired, exhausted, whatever. I feel a certain compassion of them. You know what I mean? So it's just fascinating because if you ask me if we don't love you because you're apparently not on good behavior, that's not a failure of love as much as I guess for me it's a failure of compassion. We just don't want to sit long enough with you. We just want to distance ourselves from you so that then it makes it easier to judge you, to scapegoat you, to throw you away. So yeah, it just feels like a very fickle movement.
Something.
Yeah.
So yeah, good behavior is hard to define, as Nash is saying. And then secondly, because we would want to maintain a certain way of being seen, then we start putting on these masks that we have so that
we are within the parameters of good
because
behavior.
we know what is needed of us, we know what we need to say to maintain some sort of standard, a way we want society to see us so that we can get that reward of love. But then again, the question in itself, the statement in itself, I think it cheapens love.
Okay. Love is a subpar response to the issues of life. So, for example, when you encounter, it's this idea that when you're told, but just love them. Have you loved them? Have you tried loving this person that is so problematic in your life, and you're just like, listen, if I see this person one more time, I will kill them. It's this idea that love cannot be used as a basis for solving, or even as a lens through which we approach the issues we face in our lives on a day-to-day basis.
Big goes first.
No, because
Yes, I can answer for this one.
Tell me.
yes, it is. Have you watched movies and how they construct the characters and everything, and this person goes on a rampage and you fail to understand them as a character, and then they say, oh, they did all these things because of love, and they're just like, most of it is poor writing. So love, I think, is an excuse for us to get out of a lot of things that we really need to sit with and wrestle with. So it's easier to say love as an excuse for anything. Or I did it for love. No, you are being a horrible human being to other people in the excuse for. But once people see, it's because of love, therefore we can understand. Yes.
So like when you kill people, and then it's because
you love
the person you love is on the other side.
Whatever.
Also, we can.
Yeah,
It's like
excuse.
okay, it's fine.
As long as it's driven by love.
Yeah, it's driven by love. So at that level, at least on the entertainment level, I see it as just write a better script.
Let this character sit down with his issues and face himself.
Yes. Yeah.
And also, I think like part of if we settle to that, I mean, other than like the way we've seen it portrayed in movies and all the ways that love gets abused, it's gotten abused. Maybe we are generally also are people traumatized by mislove, and by mislove is this a word that I'm using. What was presented to us as love was not love. You know what I mean? Like by any definition, it's just that it's called love, whatever the thing is, and we carry memories of that since time immemorial. So I guess if someone tells you like I not even I love you, it's just like the bottom line is I'm trying to say is that maybe we have been traumatized by all these illusions of love and misuse of love, then we don't have any more room for the real love kind of thing. Yeah, because as Vic was talking, I was thinking of even where we get this idea of love, like say God Himself and loving people. And the thing that we really struggle to admit is that this loving people cost God His life. You know what I mean? Yeah, sure, the Son was raised back to life and whatever it is. But almost this idea of I love you so much that my love for you cost me my life in that sense. And then He comes and twists the whole thing around and He says, actually, even in death, like it's in death that you still experience love. So that then by the time we come to the point where men are told to die for their wives, I mean to love their wives that Christ loved the church, which basically means He died for the church, which is basically saying men just need to die as it were, you know. That whole concept of like loving someone to the point of death, and still back to Barbara Brown Taylor, and still let them maintain their freedom, which is to say, love is an agonizingly vulnerable thing. Like, but we don't have a concept for that in our world. You know what I mean? Like, at the very least, my idea is if I love you very well, if I respond to whatever issue with love, I do. You better shape up.
Exactly.
You know, my love is supposed to produce certain
results.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this idea for God loves so much, He ends up on the cross. He straight up resurrects. But it's not like after that we all run towards Him.
Yeah.
We find all sorts of ways to use His love. You know what I mean? So that to then be translated into a human level, I'm like,
it's tough. Actually, it's the concept that Richard Rohr talks about, where he says that love is a reward unto itself. Like there's no when you have loved, that's the end.
Yeah.
That's the reward.
That seems unfair, but hey.
It's like you don't love, then now you're like, now you. And isn't that also how we treat Christ and His people? It's like, but Christ has loved you. How dare you? How dare you not respond? Just because I've come to this conclusion, because of this love I've experienced, why have you not come to the same conclusion?
Yeah.
Like our response should always be that same response. But I like that idea of love being the reward. Like getting to experience yourself as someone who loves is the reward that you get for being a loving person.
Yeah, and if you do that well, then you're still connected to Barbara Brown Taylor. You find yourself freer from all sorts of prisons that we carry ourselves. So it's almost like it doesn't matter what the neighbor does with our love. It's the fact that us extending ourselves to the neighbor frees us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess that is
that's the word. That's hard work.
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one.
Where we started. The other one is if I obey God more, He will love me more, or it shows that I love Him more. So this is with our relationship with God. This vertical love, that's very much based on our own actions, I guess.
Yes, I still don't want to go far. This one is one of those that could get you into all sorts of things. But let's see. I guess the straight up answer is no. That's right. What sorts of explanations? I mean, if you go to scriptures back again, you find all sorts of people. Like literally, the God we find in scriptures, He spends so much time pursuing and chasing after people, and like He keeps finding them and they run away. He finds them, they run away. He finds them, they run away. You know what I mean? And they're even worse than that because he finds them, they run away. When they're in problem, they scream out for Him and
they come down.
He goes, gets them, and then stop. You know what I mean? So it's like, if it was purely pegged on like literally like their obedience, it would be like as soon as they run away, I give up.
It's done.
Yeah. So in my sense, actually, even those moments, I mean, sure, there is, I guess, beneficial to being aligned with God's will and living in obedience. I mean, there is genuinely very good fruits out of that. But those are fruits. Those are not like benefits that God dishes out to you for
Like,
whatever. Yeah,
you get
exactly. You get this, you get this. But I find like love at its best is almost like expressed in our waywardness. You know what I mean? It's like it's to use a biblical word. It's like it's in our prodigalness. Like when we are out there, is when literally the Father longs. It's like it doesn't even like that particular story doesn't even say that the Father is also sitting on the gate or whatever, waiting for the son who never left, like just watching him coming, It's like he lives longing for this dude who is away out there, That's not to say that the dude who was in the house like lost everything or whatever it is. But the dude at home, however complicated his story is, he still gets to sleep, in the Father's house. He doesn't end up eating pig's food and all those different things, So you can argue, but those are not like rewards and benefits that the Father is giving to this guy. This is like, this flows from you being inside his homestead. And sure enough, the son who is out also gets to reap the fruits of being outside, kind of a thing. But almost like love is like back to that level. Like love is operating at like a transcendent level, It's like this thing for, so how you respond here, like you benefit or not benefit, whatever the thing is, but at the bottom line is, love is just, it's there. It just keeps going and going and going, even just a story that he lives in 99 to go after the one. It's like, wait. It's, of course, we also, so then obedience like feels like, oh, we want to be the 99. No, I'm a monk. I'm like the sheep number 70. What I mean?
Oh, I'm inside.
Yeah, I'm inside, Those are the ones, So anyway, all those different things.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the response to that is mostly dependent on our identity and how we view ourselves. How you view yourself affects how you view the world, and therefore how you respond to a statement like that. If you have defined yourself as, someone who feels like they need to be doing something at every time to get approval, whether from society or from God, then you will view the world as, therefore, I need to do more to get more of God's love. And maybe you have evidence of that happening in your life. So I think for me, it's a matter of identity. And maybe so the question now should be, where is that coming from? Where is those influences? What is the environment that led you to be that person who feels like they need to be a certain way so that, they get God's love or whatever. It's all of that.
And that's like cool, like the identity question. Because I think that should probe us further. Because then those people also, if that becomes your self-identity, that God does good things because I'm obedient to Him, whatever, then you also genuinely inevitably struggle with God being good to others who aren't as obedient as you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like Jesus had to bring a proper, clear verse that says, like when God makes it rain, it's like, not like, to rain in their homes for the Kenyans who are praying for the needy and for, you know what I mean? So then that becomes very, very problematic to you, so which is what you're still pointing out to, like then it's a working out. It's that shouldn't be the ground of basing your identity. It's like setting yourself up for failure.
And our last one, which I think is like my favorite one, is like the material or tangible prosperity equals God's love.
It's your favorite.
Go for it. Answer that one. Wait, is it the one that you seek the most answer?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, but it's the one. No, I feel like it's the one that's the most common in our context, right? Like it's like just from like even subconsciously how we talk even about what blessings are. It's that I need to see the blessings. If I can't see the blessings, then have I been blessed? That God's love is manifested in our lives in particular ways, and until it reaches there, I guess you keep working hard, and then when you've worked hard and then you've reached where you want, then now, finally God's love has caught up to you.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I think it's the thing about the needing of evidence. For me, it's easier to explain that God has blessed me with a house, God has blessed me with a wife and kids, and a car, and, the things. They're just
tangible things.
Yeah.
It's
not like a lot of
I
things.
job hours.
It's just a varying degrees of those.
It's the tangibility of life that we strive for as evidence, because again, there's a particular kind of way we need to be seen in society. We need to be seen as blessed children of God. And it's easier if people see these things. If these things are not there, it's hard for you, even you who are genuinely blessed by God, to imagine how blessed you are.
You're bringing shame to the Lord.
You're bringing shame to the Lord, and all those kinds of conversation. So probably we need to redefine blessings. Probably we need to do the work to see blessings in our life. Even for those of us blessed with material things, like how can we move past this? Yes, we get God has blessed you with A, B, C, D. How can we move past that? What is beneath the thing that you're calling God's blessings? And just to push it further, how is that pushing you to love others?
That's top. The first thing that came to mind is like, if you hold that statement to be true, I mean, the first thought I had was like, I mean, clearly you did not pay attention to the vetting of cabinet secretaries and permanent secretaries in Kenya. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, man, like, you are blessed, as it were. But I don't know if that's the one I want to attribute to you as a person. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing that comes to mind. And also to also make room that God actually does that. Like He does. Whether it's scripture or in real life, whatever, He does bless people with material things. It's a forced reality, to pursue that as the exclusive expression of God's blessing. Because then, you know what I mean? Like, God has created us so much diverse and particular and all those kind of things, So it's problematic when material things get reduced to be the only expression of God's blessings in our lives, which then means that if we don't have those material things, then God isn't on our side, kind of a thing, which is like very, very problematic,
So then you need to sow something. So then now the blessing comes.
And that's the problem. Then you become open for manipulation. You know what I mean? Which is where people who carry titles like pastors come in. So
your kinfolk.
So we then it becomes this whole cone that you can manipulate people. You know what I mean? Whereas I'm like, God's blessing, they include material things, but it's like so diverse.
So much more.
And never, again, I don't know if it's in this episode or the last one, when you say like, and still never disconnected or separated from community, from relationship, from life here and now. You know what I mean? The challenge is, even when we claim God is blessing us materially, it's like we become blessed materially and to become the most stingy human beings along the way. So generosity isn't a part of us, because then why should I be generous? Because you just need to go to God
to give you,
to bless you. You know what I mean? So then I think also, and I guess that's the thing that bugs me the most about material blessings and our understanding of them, is that most of the people that I know who are materially blessed aren't also, we perhaps to use the same word, aren't blessed with the gift of generosity. You know what I mean? The blessing stopped at just the material things. Which is like, it's it's like, just need to pray, God bless me with the gift of generosity. Just one more gift,
Just one more.
Which is hugely problematic for how we represent Christ in our very unequal and just societies,
It's it's like, where then is the space for God's blessing and love in communities that struggle, in our struggles. It just leaves no room for that at all. It's then you who is in your struggle. Now find your way here where there's light.
Yes.
It's just problematic anyway. We're going to leave it there and then go to Vic to give us our benediction for today.
Yeah, as it's custom, every week we leave you with a benediction, a blessing, a prayer for you. Friends, as you think of neighbors you can extend love to, may you remember that you are also a neighbor that needs to receive love. In the wanderings of your daily life, may you see, experience, and feel the goodness that comes with genuine, tender, and caring love. In seasons when you find yourself in places or situations that are devoid of love, may you find the grace and strength to navigate and path to lead you to wholesomeness. In seasons when it's difficult to extend love to your neighbor, may you still feel the soft embrace of God's arms around your being. May you be astonished by the sheer generosity of being loved, and in the returning of it, may you see the miracle of life twice blessed, grace and peace.
I think also prayer and how it's involved, it's also connected with my life and the season that I've been, So like barring all those lower high school, whatever they're doing to like say like in campus, when I guess like really, I think my prayer for those seasons was more like whatever, it's a thing that you did out of guilt or whatever. I just think that I started reclaiming prayer when prayer became an expression of my frustration and my desperation.